where we, locate people to live, to work, and so on. We haven't done that particularly well. And actually, it's probably cheap energy has, undermined the need for good planning in the last century, probably. So, it became easy to live very, very far away from, where you went to work or school or whatever. So we didn't, get particularly good, or we actually probably abandoned many of the principles of good planning that were there actually before that. If you think back to the 19th century, the Victorians at the time were very good planners, and a lot of that was to do with the fact that they had to be, they had to create places where these workers of the new industrial revolution lived together and could live together in, happiness and harmony and raise families and so on. Yeah, and cheap energy probably undermined our efforts at good planning in the 20th century. And we have to reverse that. And that's really hard because physical change is very, very real physical changes have been made to our country and our urban areas and ex-urban areas. And there is a change, there has been a change in the last few years in a recognition that it makes sense to promote living in the village and in the town and in the city as well. And in my mind, you have to promote it and you have to encourage it rather than tell people they need to live in these places. You have to say, provide these services and amenities, everything that a family or an elderly person or a young person might need, so they will want to live in that place, and so that they genuinely have everything on their doorstep within 5 or 10 or 15 minutes. That's where we need to get to. And we're actually quite a long way from that. We're probably moving in the right direction now. We talk about compact growth, which is really about not building in all these greenfield sites and instead, recognizing that we have an urban footprint and an underutilized urban footprint in most of our urban areas, and to build on those and to make use of those. But, I think it's something we haven't properly embraced, and there's a very direct connection between our carbon emissions and planning. So, if you live in a car-dependent society, you're contributing to that 20% of Ireland's total national emissions, which is huge. So we do talk about renewable energy in the electricity sector a lot, and we do tend to turn a blind eye to actually a bigger proportion of our emissions is caused by how we move around the place. And I don't think electric vehicles are necessarily, they're certainly not a magic bullet, but they're not the best solution for those transport emissions. A better solution where we actually develop communities and societies where there's a high quality of life and a better quality of life than people currently have is actually to get people living back in the towns and cities, give them everything they need, give them a reason to live in these places, and make the idea of living in this distant suburb or the one-off house maybe, just make that the unappealing choice.
Yeah. I mean, I would add to that. I think that, if anything has come out of the pandemic, the silver lining has been a connection to our biodiversity. It's what people crave. It's why we go on holidays. We're looking for access to nature and to the sea and to forests and to walks and to time with family. So, and I think that's something that feeds a kind of that narrative, that idea. This is the selling point. This is the green, clean, secure island that we can have. This is your connection to the beautiful nature that's around you and your geographic sort of closeness to that. To give that practical effect, I think that you need to have that idea. You need actors in place. Those actors tend to be those that form government and make decisions, but also those that inform government and are part of civil society. And then I think you need the institutions and processes that help get over the blockages. And this is where we have our systems of public administration. I think just a tangential point, but slightly related, is we are interconnected in energy physically across islands, the islands of Ireland and Great Britain, and the northwestern Europe. And I think there's a need to think kind of institutionally about how we govern that. So we need regional energy governance is what I would suggest on that. But I think domestically we have opportunities here. We have a lot of will, a lot of skill, a lot of expertise, a lot of opportunity to get together to drive this forward. So I think that there's very small changes that I'd make. Actually, I would institute the ministerial process. I would engender hope and a connection to our biodiversity as the core narrative. I would look to kind of use the tools that Europe are giving us to consolidate and fast track the deployment of proven technologies. And I would look to the global system of financing to bring in that financing for climate-led investment for those really hard to abate sectors. I'm extremely hopeful for the next decade. Actually, I do think if we decelerate or keep our eye off the ball, we're gonna lose it. But it's why we're all here. It's why you've gotten the response that you have. There is an extraordinary swell of support for Ireland to do this, and I'm very hopeful for that.